So explain to us what libertarian is.
I hear that all the time. Let me tell you what libertarian is. Libertarian is someone who says you can be as liberal or as conservative as you want to be. Just don't force others to be like you.
Got it.
That's what we are all about. We are all about long-term solutions, not short-term solutions. We're all about changing culture, not just changing law. Law, we have to remember something. At the end of almost every single law is a guy or a gal with a gun who will put you in a cage. And if you don't want to go in that cage, he or she is going to kill you. That means you only use law when it really matters, not just because I'm angry, not because I don't like you, not because you should do some activity I think you shouldn't do or whatever the case may be. It's only for important things like life and liberty and property and things like that. That's when you use violence. That's when you use force. That's what libertarians are all about. Yes, it is Larry Sharpe back again. It's Libertarians Drinking Coffee Live. You've seen me do this many times. Yep, the brand is strong. We are drinking coffee, and it is live. So we're doing it. So please let people know that we are doing this. Like, comment, and share. Let your friends know that there are libertarians running locally all over. While it is a presidential, election year, absolutely, that's not the only thing that's happening. There's lots of things happening around the country, in the state, and in particularly my state, right? I'm from New York, wearing my New York Libertarian shirt, right? New York strong today. And also my city, New York City. And I'm very happy today that I have with me Michael Madrid, the man himself running for Congress here in New York City. Insane and happy that you're doing it, my friend. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Larry. It's my first time doing this, complete newbie. So having the support of people like you and these opportunities, just tremendous help. So
absolutely, we have to be ready because this is kind of the new norm now, isn't it? Right? This is kind of what's happening. Everybody's out doing it this way.
Yep. Yeah. I had so many street type events planned, and they all kind of disappeared. So this is the way we got to do it.
Yeah, it becomes harder and harder for us, and we have to do this more and more and get more people to share, which is what I talk about all the time. So let me ask you the question that people are going to ask you, right?
Yep,
so that we're clear. Why run now? And of all the things to run for, why Congress?
Okay. I will give you a little background on me because this is something which is, built up for a while. And then
sure.
We do have a very immediate spark, and I'll go through all that too. So just the background, I've been a software developer for most of my career,
okay.
But I've been interested in economics and economic policy pretty much my whole adult life. Ask anyone who knows me, and I probably talk their ear off when they ask me a polite question, and 30 minutes later, like, when's this guy going to stop?
Okay.
So, I read The Economist magazine. I spend a lot of time arguing, or rather debating people on, even back in the day on the Yahoo message boards about things like steel tariffs. One of those discussions.
So economy is one of your big deals here.
Yes, I'm very much a free market economist. One of these discussions, I believe it was about steel tariffs, led me to say, there is a lot about this I don't know. So I decided to go to a PhD program.
Okay.
Spent a few years there, decided academic economics really wasn't what I wanted.
Okay.
So I got the software, but economics and software have been really two things I've been very passionate about.
So in the case of the software piece, have you been more of a consultant? Have you been more of a business owner? Have you been more of a developer? Have you been more of an investor? Or I know guys in that field tend to do all of those things.
Yes, all of the above except the investor part, unless you count the one share of Microsoft I own.
Okay, there we go. You are now a Microsoft owner. I love that.
Check the box, right?
I love it. That's great. So that's a big deal. So that's kind of why you want to go to the federal level, because you think that the macroeconomics is a critical aspect. Am I reading you right?
Really, it can be any level where I can be helpful. I think I could be a mayor or a governor or whatever. Okay. I think, you look at the people who are elected, perhaps, you say this software developer, could he be president? Well, then you look at the president and say, would he be worse than that guy? So I think, it's all open.
So who are you running against in Congress? Who's your competition right now?
Gerald Nadler. So
Nadler, of course, sure.
Nadler, yes.
Everybody knows him.
Yes, you've seen him in the impeachment hearings. What I would like to turn, he's I guess a liberal Democrat, but with the AOCs of the world now, he's a conservative liberal Democrat.
Right, yeah, relatively. Yeah,
yes.
Very true.
So, I think I don't like AOC solutions, obviously, but some of the questions she's asking, I think, are the right questions.
Okay.
And it's that type of people who we have to win over.
I agree. It's funny. Yeah. John just posts right now, what are some of the more difficult obstacles Mike will face in this race? And I think you've just brought one of them up, haven't you?
Which part?
The idea of those are the people you got to change over. You've got to change mind, right?
Yeah, and that's why I think your series on what is it, Libertarian for Bernie?
Oh yes, yeah. Oh, thank you. Tonight is my series. Can't feel the burn. Maybe it's not sharp enough.
Yes.
Yes.
I think that winning over that crowd, and I've had conversations like this. And one of my main issues, basic income, I think is I think it's good policy, first of all.
Mm-hmm.
But
a lot of libertarians would disagree with you.
Yes, I know. I'll get into that. Don't worry.
I've heard that more than once.
I saw your. I'm not going to shy away from that. I think that's a great policy because we preach a very disruptive brand of capitalism, creative destruction. Yes, trade. Yes, technology change. Yes, but if you don't have some sort of lightweight safety net, it's very because
you've just brought up a very big point that I bring up all the time, right?
Yeah,
and that is. Disruption, while required, is still scary.
It's still disruptive.
Yes, it's still disruptive, right? I know it's required. I'm with you. It's required. Exactly. I agree. Yes. It's required. But man, it's scary and it's by default disruptive.
Yes. And it's going to make us all richer, but if it's making, in aggregate, but if 9 out of 10 people are doing really well and you're the one who gets dinged, you're going to be pretty unhappy. And that could happen to any of us. So we need a way to, have this safety net where you can get back up on the horse, retain yourself. And I think this is key. I think it's a great policy, but it's also a way we can get people to buy into our vision of capitalism.
So is that one of your main issues or just happens to be an issue?
Yes, there are 5 issues that I have.
Tell me, please.
Okay. So the first issue, we kind of skipped over the why running for Congress, but we can get to that.
Did I mess you up? I'm a bad host.
No. The conversation is flowing very nicely and naturally.
Okay.
But okay, I'll morph this in because housing, my first issue, legalized housing. But this is really, so as I mentioned, software developer, economist, this idea that our systems, both these fields, our systems have to be very dynamic, very adaptable, flexible, because the world changes. Sometimes the world changes very dramatically. So, we need our systems to be able to do that, our laws to be able to do that. And
of course,
most of our regulation is reactive.
Yes. Something goes wrong. Hit it with a stick.
Even if it's a good law, when we make it, 5 years later, it's no longer good.
Right.
And yet we have this special interest, which is profiting from it, and it becomes very hard to change. So,
absolutely.
Restoring this flexibility, and I think markets is the answer to a lot of this, is one of the big reasons I'm running. But the immediate spark for this was I got involved with a housing group called Open New York, or what is termed as a YIMBY group. Yes, in my backyard.
Yes, in my backyard.
Yes, and the main issue they're concerned with is housing. We have a housing shortage. How do we solve this? Well, maybe we could build housing. Radical suggestion there, right?
You are a radical, Madrid. You are a radical.
I'm a radical.
Yes.
But to put the YIMBY, that's not really the YIMBY message. The real YIMBY message, and because it has to be, is we need housing. Let's remove the barriers to building housing.
Sure.
Because if we didn't have those barriers, no one would be a YIMBY because the problem would be solved.
Right.
But since we have things, zoning is one thing in particular, which is really horrible.
But is zoning done at the federal level?
Well, no, it isn't, Larry. That's a great question. Because, Some people say, "Aren't you running as a kind of local person?"
That's what I'm asking.
Yes, it is. It is. Zoning itself isn't, but the federal government has intervened. I believe it's intervened towards talking about
the strings attached, the federal strings.
Kind of like Reagan said, if you want highway funds, well, change your drinking age.
Right.
So I think in every major Democratic presidential candidate had a housing plank where they said, something like, if you want federal money for housing or some other things, change your zoning laws. So it is a very local issue, but it's become such a problem that it's now a national issue.
No, it's funny. I was talking to a guy from New Hampshire.
Yeah.
He gave me this similar thing. He's like, I'm a local guy, but being a local guy, I began realizing how the federal government has its strings attached to so many local issues that you have to just go federal just so you can cut the strings.
Exactly, yeah.
So the local people can do anything. Yeah. So this is kind of what you're saying.
Yeah, and some may say, oh, the federal government shouldn't interfere with local rights. I look at it more as this is kind of like a Bill of Rights thing. People should not be able to say, you can, I mean, if you look at it at the very local level, you can have, say, a neighborhood saying, you can't build multifamily apartments here. Should the federal government have sway of that? Well, maybe not, but look at it on the more micro level. I'm a property owner. A developer has approached me and said, I want to do something on your land. Should your neighbors have the right to tell you, no, you cannot do this on your land? And to the people who might want to move into this building, no, you do not have the right to this. So, there are many different levels you can take this. It's not clear whose rights are being infringed on more. It is very clear that we have a lot of homeless people. We have, a huge housing shortage. We have very high rents. And all these things are, if we build the housing we need, these things go away. So
housing's number one. What's number two?
Legalize housing.
Legalize housing.
Yep. Number two is free our streets. This is another issue where some libertarians may feel I'm not being libertarian, but I think I can explain that, yes, I am.
Okay.
So especially, this probably isn't a problem in rural areas, but in places like New York, we have a lot more people who are on bicycles. We have a lot more people who are on hoverboards and skateboards. And yet we have streets which are extremely car-centric. And there's a huge amount of space devoted to cars, both cars moving and cars which are parked.
Sure.
We need to rejig things, rebalance things, and we need to do something like congestion pricing. Now,
but isn't that also local?
Yep, it is local, but it's also, is any issue local? We saw with the Amazon thing in Queens, AOC, it's not a local issue. AOC's never going to vote on it.
I see. So if I hear what you're saying also, I'm glad you bring this up. So you're doing exactly what I think, and it's going to, I guess I'm complimenting you in a way, but I'm not sure. But you're going to the federal government, but being the bully pulpit for your district.
I think these are important issues. And as a congressman, maybe I don't have the sway as a city council member, but I certainly have more sway on these issues than Michael Madrid talking out of his living room. So
yes, and also I think you might get the press like AOC did, right? She talked about Amazon. She became a spokesman. So you're saying you want to be a spokesman for these types of things, even though it may not be under your physical control to vote for it. As a congressman, you still want to be the person to bring up the issue.
Well, I think actually it's both because like with the housing thing, we have highway bills which say build more car lanes.
Right.
All this money to pave more asphalt. Some of that money could we should cut some of that money because we are in dire financial straits, but if some of that money goes to bike lanes instead, if some of that money goes to rethinking streets so they are less of a hazard and we have less accidents, less healthcare costs because less people are getting hit by cars, that I think that's not just a local issue. That is a federal issue.
Okay.
So I think both ways this is something that...
So we got housing and we got streets.
Yes, legalize our streets. I just will mention really quickly about the congestion pricing.
Please go ahead.
We are not the party of free college, right? We are not the party of free healthcare. We should also not be the party of you have this free space on the street to leave your car, to go with your car. There is a cost to this, and you should be paying the cost to that. And the cost is very tangible, even if you're a car owner, because if you're stuck in traffic behind someone, your freedom is being impinged upon. So I don't think this is, some libertarians might say, a tax is an impingement on freedom. I say your freedom is going to get impinged upon either way, just by the fact that there are all these people on the streets and we don't have enough space for everyone to use it. So it's how do we do it so we are using this most efficiently?
Okay. No, I see. I think, at least I can imagine how many libertarians, of course, are unhappy with any tax.
Yes.
But if I understand what you're saying, at least it's a usage tax.
Yes, exactly.
Right?
And
So,
let me also be very clear. We have Cuomo-style congestion pricing. Why are we doing that? It's just to funnel money to the MTA.
100%. Yes.
This is not a congestion. Congestion pricing is about reducing congestion.
Got it.
If you want to make this, it should be revenue neutral. You can always lower some other tax. So then you have the benefit of less congestion, less accidents, and you're not collecting new revenue.
Okay.
The whole MTA thing, that has to be said, because I think some people are going to say, yes.
I know a lot, particularly if they don't live in New York City, people are watching this, right? Yeah. And over the course of the next 2 or 3 days, over the 3 or 4 platforms that I show this over, we get, give or take, 2,000 views.
Yep.
So several hundred people, some people watch it twice, several 100,000 people will watch this. So they don't all live in New York City.
Sure.
So they have to understand that pricing is going to go right to the MTA.
Yeah. So to the rural people out there, I'm not saying we have congestion pricing for a rural area where there's no congestion.
Right.
That would be silly. But in New York City, we do need this.
So, okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Third thing, basic income.
Okay.
And these are kind of in an order, but they're all important.
So now from what I see, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I see 3 different types of basic income.
Yep.
I see the negative income tax style.
That's my baby.
Right. I see the overall more of the old school Austrian economist style, and I see the kind we're about to get, which is the horrible Yang style.
Yeah. Yep.
That's what I see. Which one are you?
Very clearly negative income tax.
Okay.
UBI just seems way too expensive, and there's no reason why Jeff Bezos should get UBI.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I don't need UBI. A lot of people don't need it. There's, we do not have the resource to do that. So that very much negative income tax, and for the reasons I stated before about the disruption. Another thing, as I believe you brought up, and certainly Judge Gray have brought up when you've talked about this, we have at least 79 different means-tested federal agencies giving out assistance.
Yep.
And I'm sure they're doing the same thing over and over again. I'm sure it's, bureaucrats saying, oh, you get it, you didn't get it, you'll get it when you fill in all the boxes. Correct. Right. So, one wonk was saying, even someone like me who studies this stuff for a living, I can't figure it out. So how is someone who, they're looking for a job, they're trying to make ends meet, they have to look after their children, how are they going to figure that out?
They're not. The system is set up for scammers.
Yeah. Yes.
The system is literally set for scammers.
Yep. So exactly. And there's that too. Just get rid of all that. Get rid of all that. It'll probably be cheaper. It depends who you ask. But just in terms of simplification of the government, this is just so much better.
Got it.
And as I said before, we live in a disruptive world, and we have very many things which are market distorting. Minimum wage, pretty much every farm subsidy, things like the Jones Act. And what is the argument when you talk to a well-meaning DSA person? It's we can't get rid of minimum wage because people can't make a living and they'll starve.
Yep.
We can't get rid of tariffs because workers will lose their job and then they'll starve. We can't. So
you're saying negative income tax actually makes minimum wage irrelevant?
Yeah, I'm saying it makes it a lot less relevant, and we have the answer. We can say you can get rid of these things because these people are protected with a negative income tax, with a basic income. And
does that? This is the part that I want to make sure I'm clear on this, right? I've heard many arguments that negative income tax fixes X, fixes Y. I get it.
Mhm.
This one, does that end the incentive to work, or the reverse? Does that increase the incentive for an employer to only pay somebody whatever $2 an hour because they're gonna make 30 grand no matter what I pay them, right? So I can pay them $1 an hour. The government's gonna fill up the rest. Why bother? I'll pay everybody $1. Everybody gets $1 an hour, and that is that true or no?
Well, first of all, in any system we have, there are going to be examples like that. The question is, is this a few people or is this what the system becomes? I think if you have a socialist system, this is what the system becomes.
Yeah, I think Walmart has already shown us that by having so many of their employees already on Medicaid and Medicare. Yeah.
But the answers are, first of all, there's a fair amount of economic research that, even if you give people something like this, they still want to work. I mean, you could give this, I'm sure, definitely most of the people I know, I'm sure most of the people they are going to be way above, want to be way above this minimum layer.
Right.
Are poor people any different? Are poor people less ambitious? Do they want to say, oh yeah, I'm just going to take this money and drink all day? Well, there are some who are, and I think the vast majority are not. The vast majority have the same drive and ambition we do.
Okay.
Now, about the case of the businesses, I'm sure, at the margin, there's someone who's going to do this, and some people are not. One thing, if you're really worried about, people having a living wage, who cares? If the business is paying them $2 and they have a basic income and that's enough to live on, who cares? But the better answer, I think, is, we are pushing a world of hyper-capitalism. If you're able to pay your workers $1 an hour, $2 an hour, and make a killing, what is your neighbor going to think? What is someone else who can do what you're doing going to think? I could be doing that too. So I'm going to pay this worker $2.50. And, it's still going to be a huge amount of profit. So someone else is going to jump and say, I can pay them $4.
If I understand you right, if we have the negative income tax, what you're telling me is, even though there may be some early disruption of people trying to scam at $2 an hour or whatever that is, right? That over time people start going, no, I can do $2.25. I can do $2.30. I can do.
I mean, this is the competitive economy. Right. If you are a business, you have to. If you're offering the exact same product, then you have to lower your price if you want to increase your market share.
Right.
But it's the same thing with competition for labor on the other side. And this is something which I think people say, employers have absolute discretion to pay their workers whatever. And if we don't pay them, if we don't have laws like minimum wage, then people are just going to get paid $1 an hour or whatever. And,
you know what I think, and maybe I'm wrong here. I'm looking at culture here, right?
Yeah.
And also what I saw years ago, I used to deal with a lot of retail stores when I was consulting many years ago.
Yeah.
And what I would find is, people would literally leave jobs over $9.45 an hour to $10 an hour.
Absolutely.
Right? They would leave jobs, pack up and go. And you might say, if you're making, $400,000 a year, that $1 an hour, who cares?
Yeah.
If you're making $9 an hour, another $1 an hour, that's money, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
that's real money. Yeah.
Right? If that's where you are in your life, that's money right there, right? So it's interesting. I see your point. The other issue I'm thinking about is culturally in our minds. $15 is what labor is worth. Right? Because we've been pushed the fight for $15 an hour minimum wage, the fight for 15. So there's no logical reason why labor is worth $15 an hour. But there's absolutely a cultural reason why it's $15 an hour. So if some guy or gal says, some owner says, I'm going to pay you $5 an hour, wouldn't I just, at that point, wouldn't I stay home out of pride? Wouldn't I stay home out of respect and say, I'm not going to do it. In which case, that guy doesn't have an employee. So
Yeah.
now he's forced, or the employer is forced to pay $15 an hour because nobody will show up if they don't do $15 an hour, even though there is no minimum wage. Am I going too deep in this or no?
No, that's fine. I mean, I think it may happen in some cases. On the other hand, you know, if the employer can only pay $6 an hour,
okay,
because otherwise their business won't be profitable. You know, you might have some people who say, you know, $6 an hour, I can't make ends meet. But if I had just that extra $6 an hour on top of a basic income, I can make ends meet. So maybe I'll just do it. And you also have people, probably, you know, younger people who maybe they just want to gain experience.
Okay.
You know, well, yeah, I'm perfectly happy. There was a great story about an architect, black architect, and I have to remember his name, but you know, he was like, wow, architecture is great. I really want to do this. He studied it. And then, you know, a friend told him, you do realize that this was, I think, in the 30s or 40s in Los Angeles. One said, you do realize that people just don't hire black architects. You know, horrible story, but
Sure.
But he soldiered through. He got a few internships. One of the internships was going to pay him, you know, something nominal, like $3 or $4 the hour. The other one was, we're not going to pay you anything. But he realized that was going to give him a tremendous amount of experience. So he took that one instead, and he got the experience he needed. And, you know, he always, I think, even throughout his career, even though he designed, you know, wonderful things, he always had to go through a white partner or do some sort of rigmarole, but he just dealt with it. He did hugely great work. So I think, you know, there are all sorts of examples we can bring up. At the end of the day, I think the pluses will probably outweigh the benefits. If we did implement this and we found that some of the—
You mean the pluses will outweigh the minuses?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Good.
Maybe the benefits and the minuses.
I love it. Oh, it'll outweigh everything. I love it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So
Outweighs it
hopefully
all.
the benefits will outweigh
Okay.
the minuses. If, you know, we implement it and it turns out that I'm wrong, and, you know, we do have these difficulties, well, we change up, we rethink, you know, we do things. But I think it's certainly much better than what we're doing right now, and it will give us a much clearer answer on, is this the way to do it or not? So,
Okay.
win-win.
So those are three. You said you had five.
Three.
There's two more.
Yes, 3. 4 is the one I just breathe easy, because this is the one which I think no libertarian, except for, you know, the very out there, this is decrim now.
Okay.
So this is, I think, not everyone believes in this. I'll just spend a couple minutes because I don't think it's controversial. But, you know, why are we putting people in jail for things like sex work, for, you know, very low risk drugs, which are not crimes? These are victimless non-crimes. And yet we are using our financial resources to put people in jail and really ruin their lives.
So decrim now is drugs and sex work, or more than that?
I think it's mainly sex work in terms of the official term, but definitely low risk drugs. And, you know, I'm open to considering other drugs, but
So is hold on, let me clear. Is decrim sex work?
decrim would be sex work.
Oh, okay,
would
thank
be
you.
more— yeah, it's I guess this is a buzzword. Maybe I need to work on the messaging, but decriminalize sex work, legalize marijuana, legalize psychedelics have been shown in recent medical research to have some properties of treating depression, which seem to be very positive.
PTSD also.
Yeah. So, you know, I know many people who've done these drugs and they're not addicts. They're perfectly functioning human beings. They're these, you know, they are now out on street corners.
So it's decrim sex work and legalized drugs. Is that what you're saying? Okay.
Yes.
Is that 1, 4, or is that 4 and 5?
No, that's all part of 4.
Okay.
And just in general, you know, even jaywalking in New York City is illegal technically.
I know.
What?
Yes.
All these things are just excuses for what is often a hyperactive police force to just put you in jail. And,
or using law enforcement as a profit center.
Yeah, you mentioned that. Absolutely. There are all these things we need to, we should not be a society which has criminalized all these things. And I don't really have that much interaction with the police, except recently as a cyclist I do, because they like to park in the bike lanes and just ignore these things. And I really never felt I was living in a police state before, but you see all these cases of police brutality where, everybody's outraged for a day or two, and then the police say, yeah, we need an investigation. A month later, 2 months later, it's like,
we'll investigate ourselves, and guess what? We were fine.
Yeah,
oh,
it was fun. Yeah, we're still gonna pay for the $10 million lawsuit, but we were fine.
Mm-hmm.
So this is just a huge.
What's 5?
5 is another thing. This is my most thankless issue.
Okay.
Green the market. Half of it is thankful. The other half is. So maybe we'll do the thankful part first.
All right.
Green the market, market-based solutions to environmental problems. The easy part is we just have to get rid of a lot of subsidies. Farm subsidies.
Of what subsidies?
Pretty much everything, but in general, specific ones, agricultural subsidies. Farmers get huge amounts of money. We can't afford this, and they're huge polluters. Why are we paying these people to pollute? So get rid of that. Fossil fuel companies, very obviously. Should we fund people to pollute and raise our healthcare costs? I really don't think so.
Okay.
Energy companies in general, should we fund any energy companies? I would say no. And a
lot of Democrats, particularly the Bernie side, would say, yes, we have to fund the good ones, right? Whatever they decide as good, solar, wind, we should a couple
fund them. Things there. Whatever we decide is good is key.
Yes.
What about technology X, which is going to solve all our problems? No, wind and solar. Has to be wind and solar.
Right.
So that is a big thing. We have a very flexible mechanism of dealing with that, which you might be able to guess, but I'm going to save it. Which also, if we implement it, we can say really, no, not wind and solar either. No energy companies. Military spending. this is not just an environmental issue. We need to spend. We do not have the resources to spend as much we spend on the military, but the military is also a huge polluter. So this is part of it. Foreign wars, pollution, wasted spending, wasted life and everything. So that's, I think, a very good one, which is not exclusively environmental, but part of it. Jones Act. I'm sure you're familiar with the Jones Act. I'm sure probably most libertarians are. This is the law that U.S. shipping between U.S. ports has to be ships built in the U.S., crewed by U.S., and owned by U.S. companies. It hugely inflates the costs of shipping goods. So sometimes U.S. businesses are shipping goods from China or they're shipping LNG to New England from Russia, instead of from the Gulf of Mexico, which is very much closer. Puerto Rico does this too.
Of course.
Huge.
Hawaii,
huge drain on the economies of Hawaii and Puerto Rico. It is also hugely polluting because stuff which ordinarily would go on ship goes on truck instead. So also an economic as well as environmental issue, but also an environmental issue. So all these things.
Okay.
Now the other part, the part where some libertarians might feel is less libertarian, is pollution pricing.
Okay.
And this is the thankless issue for me because it used to be some people on the left and even some conservatives on the right said this is the elegant solution to our environmental problems. Now the people on the left have totally rejected anything with the word market in it, so they think I'm a fascist.
Okay.
And some of my fellow libertarians say, "Wow, you really are a socialist, aren't you?" So thankless issue. But my rebuttal to this is there are 3 things. The first is that the first thing is that I think you brought up in another episode that there's nothing more permanent than a temporary government program.
Yep.
This is one where we're lucky because we do have zero emissions technologies and they're getting cheaper and cheaper as they get cheaper and cheaper, pollution goes away. So this is one where we can have pollution taxes, and as that pollution goes away, the taxes go away, the pricing goes away. So this is one with, I would like to have a built-in exit strategy for every spending measure and every tax measure. This is one where we don't even need one because it is already built in naturally. So that's one thing. The second thing, which I think is huge, is you say you're paying for pollution. Well, you're already paying this tax. There have been lots of estimates of the savings, the healthcare savings from pollution pricing, particularly the 1990 Clean Air Act, which targeted acid rain. There have been estimates as high as 30-1 in terms of the cost of business or the healthcare savings versus the cost of business. I have seen some studies saying, yeah, we dispute the the healthcare savings are not nearly 30-1. But I always
have a worry about this, right? A worry about when you start saying whatever pollution tax, carbon tax, insert phrase here, whatever that tax is.
Pricing, Larry, not tax.
Sorry, pricing. Sorry, it's pricing. Correct, pricing. When you have pollution pricing, which definitely does sound better, I'll give you that. Nice phrasing. So I'll call it that, pollution pricing.
Yep.
My worry is who decides where the money goes.
Yep.
Who decides is it effective or not?
Yep.
Who decides what it is? Because my worry becomes I always see this like the New York State Lottery, right? The New York State Lottery was supposed to be for education.
Yep.
And then X years later, it's part of the general slush fund that's paying off cronies and pension plans and everything else. Our MTA with the bridges, tolls for the bridges were always supposed to be until the bridges said that, right? And then all of a sudden the bridges are paid for, and it's a slush fund for the MTA. My worry is we put in pollution pricing, great, pollution goes down, and now it's a slush fund for our military industrial complex, or insert thing here.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And my answer is going to be the same as with congestion pricing. Use this to offset other tax or to pay down debt. So shrink the government. And your point about, how can we trust the government to do that? Absolutely right. But, that is, that is an objection, which I think is right. But, we have to kind of insist that where are we going to use this money? So I know that's not a great answer, but, if we can get the message of lower government, then hopefully we can get this message through. And I think with the case that even if this is going for bad purposes, we are lowering healthcare costs. Healthcare is a huge boondoggle, which, we're going to pay for that. The government is going to find some other way to pay for that anyway. And we're also burdened with the fact that people will have asthma and they will have other health problems.
Right.
And the rivers will be polluted and other places will be polluted.
So let's go to that health piece if we could.
Yep.
Right. COVID-19 has just changed everything, hasn't it? Yep. Right. I mean, it just everybody's worried, afraid, shut down, economic devastation, government overreach, all that stuff. Do you have any opinion on how it was dealt with here in New York City or New York State?
Well, I want to blame people. And I think we can blame people. But, some of the response, South Korea did this very well. A lot of the reason why they did this very, very well is because they had SARS and SARS affected them.
Absolutely.
So they kind of were inoculated to a crisis like this.
Yes.
So they had the pieces in place. We did not. So our response has been horrible.
Yep.
And around the world, it's been very bad. But to a certain extent, nobody expected this. And even, back in February, the day I caught this disease, I went to karaoke. Mm-hmm. I did take the precaution of bringing a Ziploc bag to put on the microphone. So I wasn't infected and I didn't infect anyone else. But, at that point, I think New York State had less than 1,000 cases. And I didn't at all expect. So I think, we were all slow on getting on the curve. So to a certain extent, there is that. On the other extent, we had a very personal feud between Mayor de Blasio and
Cuomo.
where, De Blasio would say one thing and Cuomo would come out and say pretty much the opposite thing. And you kind of asked, why are you saying this? And it became very clear that the reason was because de Blasio said one thing. So I think part of it, this idea that this is, a crisis we can profit from and use.
Got it.
I think that was a very bad part. Another part which affects our party very directly is, in the middle of this crisis, in the budget bill, Governor Cuomo sneaks in the ballot access provision.
Yes, absolutely. And trash.
Oh my God. We are in the middle of a crisis. Is this the time? Is this the time?
The perfect time for him.
It's the perfect time for him.
So let me ask that now, right? This hit, right?
Yeah.
So has this changed? Yeah, I know you had your 5. Now COVID hits.
Yep.
Have they changed, or they're still the same? Has COVID changed what you think?
Well, 3 of them, I think it just highlights them. Housing is a problem. Housing is a big burden on people in normal times. In COVID, people can't pay the rent and they're worried about getting evicted. And we have people saying cancel rent and rent strike.
Yep.
And if you are burdened and, if you're low income and rent is 30, 40, 50% of your income, which you just lost, and you don't have savings, then, I understand the sentiment behind things like. Now, imagine a world where it's just 20 or 25%. This is a world where people can save a little more, where they can, if 2 months of rent in that world, if 1 month of rent in our world is 2 months of rent in that world, then they can last another month.
Absolutely.
So, and will some people still need assistance? Will some people still have problems? Yes, absolutely. But the number is going to be a lot lower. And, in a crisis.
So housing is actually just even deeper now.
Even deeper.
Okay.
Decrim, we've seen what's happened in our prisons where they're overcrowded, where we have to release people, where, where in normal times you sell a little pot or something. They ruin your life by putting you in prison. Now it's harder to get a job. In times of COVID, that could be a death sentence if you're
literally.
So I think, here again, it just really sharpens the urgency and obviously a basic income. If we had the basic income in place, we wouldn't have to do 20 different stimulus bills. We wouldn't have to wait for Pelosi to agree with McConnell. We wouldn't have to face the risk that Pelosi tries to stick the whole Green New Deal in this in the stimulus bill, and we could take time to take our time trying to think about what is the best way to do this bailout. Do we we rush through a PPP?
Would we even need a bailout?
We might not even need a bailout. We probably would need some. We might need some. We might not need it, but it would be a lot smaller. We'd have a lot more time to think about this, and we wouldn't rush to a bill where the money's going to Shake Shack and Harvard University and places like that. So,
absolutely. All right.
I think all these 3 issues.
Like that.
Yep.
But the other thing that comes up now is you're running this year, right? So 2 aspects you have to worry about. One of them is with the COVID crisis is just we have to do this now, right? You're not going to be able to go out there and shake hands and kiss babies. Karaoke night might be canceled, right? So, I mean, that's probably not going to happen anymore,
there
right?
are
so
karaoke nights, so we can do that. And
there we go. So we're still good.
I'll put you on the invitation.
I love it. Thank you. So the question becomes, how do you get your name out, your word out, everything you want to do when we don't have that anymore? How do we do that?
Yeah. Well, some of the events, like some of the cycling events where I was planning for later when the weather is nicer anyway. Hopefully we're off lockdown by then for those type of events. But yes, you raise a great point. One of the things I was thinking of doing, which I think can translate well, I need buzz. I need to go viral. That's the only possible way I can win. So comedy.
Shelley saying online karaoke.
What's that?
Shelley says online karaoke is your deal.
Yes, definitely. But also online, I was thinking even before this, I have to do stuff like spoof press conferences.
I like that.
Where, I'm the idiot. It'd be very self-deprecating. I'm the idiot. My campaign managers is telling me why we can't raise money by selling Joe Biden's Wikipedia page to Donald Trump or Donald Jr.
I love it.
Things like that. And I was wanting to do this in a studio with live studio audience, half of them which might have been stuffed animals, but this is something I could do on Zoom. So I think
I like that idea. I think you're right. I think you could do that kind of thing, right? Something that's a spoof that goes viral, and then boom, making me think I got to do something now like that too. All right.
Yeah. So I just have to make sure I can come up with funny material, and if I can get there neck and neck with Trevor Noah, then I think I can probably get elected.
I think you're right. I like that. Good. So how do we handle the fear?
Yeah.
Right. The fear of many things, right? We have a fear of the virus is one thing, right? The fear of that. The fear of, oh my God, Trump is the evilest man in the world, or oh my God, Democrats are socialists, or insert thing here.
Yep.
I mean, the average American, when they're afraid, they go to what's safe, right? So if I lean right, I rush to Trump, he's going to save me. I rush to my Republican. If I lean left, I rush to my Democrat. I rush to Biden. They're going to save me. How do we get someone to go, no, you don't have to do that. There's another option.
Yep. I agree with you during the crisis.
Mm-hmm.
I think after the crisis, I mean, you've lived through 9/11. As I did. And one thing we noted post 9/11, after the crisis was over, after everything was calm again, there were a lot of divorces. There were a lot of breakups. People, they had their world shook up, and they're like, I have these unnecessary complications in my life, and why do I need them anymore?
100%. People left their jobs, moved, all kind of stuff. Yeah.
So I think there will be this, reevaluation of values, and if we can offer a credible alternative to all the junk going on, then
so we're the rebound date.
Listen, Larry, things were not working. Things were not working. We are the alternative. We're the solution to these complications. And this is good because I get to bring up my campaign buzzword,
please,
which I think fits into most of my policies. It fits into our libertarian way, and that is simplify.
I like that.
We have gone through a lot of shit recently, and it's not just been COVID. The whole Trump administration has been, what tweet is going to come out tomorrow? What ally are we going to offend? So there's a lot of this. I think when this thing calms down, people are going to just want to simplify their life. And if we can coalesce around a message saying simplify, something like simplify, I think that may work.
I love that. I really, because I brought that up in the past, and somebody, Keith, his brother, he remembers this. I don't know if you can see it. It says more like Uno, less like D&D. I brought this idea up. I love
more like
you said it better than I did.
More like punk rock, less like 19-minute Yes songs.
Okay. So.
Even though I love progressive rock and I love the 19-minute long Yes songs, the reason it got really complicated. People I was talking about this, and I actually picked this up from Alex Merced, who ran for Senate in 2016 when I was supporting his campaign. Mm-hmm. He brought the idea of, if you have the game of Uno, which is a simple game, most people know it, have heard of it, know what it is. If you actually had a deck of cards and you walked out into a group of people and said, hey, somebody want to play Uno? Odds are you probably grab somebody who would sit and play a quick game of Uno. They know how, it's fine. Yep. But if you like Dungeons and Dragons, which I happen to love, but I'm just saying, and I got all my books and I go, hey guys, who wants to play Dungeons and Dragons? Most people say, how do you play? I don't get it. Difficult to play, right? And when you play Uno, you don't need a referee. Right. Everyone knows, right? If the green 2, you either put a green or a 2 on. If you don't, you're cheating. Everybody knows. Everyone knows who's cheating. No referee required. Dungeons and Dragons, there's a guy with stuff and he's literally hiding, telling you what you have to know, and it's a whole different world. And when you have Uno, more people play, more people trust, more people are part of the system. Dungeons and Dragons, less people play, less people trust, and there's more people hidden. So that was my very long way of saying what you said, simplify. Yeah. Well, I totally agree with you. The one thing I'd say with Dungeons and Dragons, at least there is a positive payoff. And
there we go. Yes.
With the Trump administration, with all this overregulation, with zoning laws, there's a negative payoff.
Yes,
So,
good point.
Get rid of the complications, simplify our life, let people be free to make their own choices. I think this is something which may resonate. Another thing, if we say Democrats suck, Republicans suck, I don't think that's going to play very much. But I think we can say that the response of the FDA and the CDC really was not what we wanted. And
right.
Part of the reason is these agencies have too much power. They are big and bungling, and having something smaller and more efficient is the way to go. And then, we take it one step further. Who is the party of smaller and more efficient? Well, we know it's not the Republicans because they're in power now.
Yep.
But the FDA and the CDC, this is not something which Trump created. This is something which has been going on for administration after administration after administration.
You can't blame Trump for everything.
You cannot blame Trump for everything. You cannot blame George W. Bush got a lot of the blame for Katrina, but that was another thing. It was local authorities, it was Congress, it was the Army Engineer Corps, where all of these people said, yeah, we need to do this thing, and then it would just stop there. They wouldn't dredge the canals or whatever else they had to do.
So let me go to the last piece, which I want to cover today, which is, I'm sure you're going to do your damnedest to win. I know you're going to try. And if those of you want to help out Michael, particularly if you're in New York City, but if you want to help out a New York City libertarian trying to run and win, head on over to Madrid4.nyc. Right, head over to Madrid4.nyc at the bottom of your screen. Help them out if you want to. Donate, volunteer, share this, do whatever you got to do if you want to help them out. Yeah. Now, I know you're going to run to win, but have you decided if you don't win, is there a consolation prize? Like I bring it up often. When I ran for governor, consolation prize was easy. Ballot access. I had it easy.
Yep.
You maybe not so easy. Tell me, what is there one? And if so, what is it?
I think there definitely are. As I mentioned, I got in this through the YIMBY movement, and the YIMBY movement is growing. I think hopefully I can get them more exposure. So, the further I can push this and all these issues, but especially the YIMBY, decrim, I think also is one.
So how do you measure that it's working? Is it that we get more votes towards it? Is it that it gets put up as a referendum? How do you measure, okay, I've made the impact?
Yeah, well, some of this is a little less scientific. Obviously, if I can get 5-10% of the vote at least, if not win outright, then I think, for a libertarian candidate, that would be great. That would get us exposure. That would mean that the, conservative liberal politicians who run New York would have to, maybe it would give them the cover to say, hey, I can vote for decrim. I can.
Right.
It would be great, to see establishment politicians adopt some of these because the causes are important.
I love that.
So that's one thing.
So a win might, if you win, awesome. If you don't win, if some other politician adopts some of your policies, you would take that as a win also.
Yes, and two other things. You did mention earlier that housing is a very local issue.
Yes.
The transit is also a very local issue.
Yes.
If I decide I want to do this and fight on a different level, I can. There are a lot of local elections coming up in New York City next year.
Next year, 2021.
Yeah. So, if I have the organization, I have the name recognition, then this could transition into one of those races.
I love that too.
To do that, and I think the third thing is, something I think you're doing wonders for, but to really get us to coalesce the Libertarian Party around some things. Yes, we believe in freedom, but we believe about it in a pragmatic way. And the face of the Libertarian Party is responsible people like you, like Judge Gray, like Justin Amash. It is not naked guy and toaster guy. I very much love the fact that we have Vermin Supreme in the party. I think he does great things. He keeps us grounded and gives us humor. But I don't, if him, toaster guy, and naked guy are the face of the party, if that's what mainstream voters associate us with, we're not going to be able. So helping the message of pragmatic libertarianism, something we can all coalesce around, I think is also something, a way I can, hopefully that I can contribute. So those would be the three things which, and it's things like that where I think I'm doing the right thing by doing this risk. So
I love it. Michael, thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate it.
Yep. Thanks once again for the opportunity.
Absolutely. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope it was interesting for you all. Libertarians, we are doing stuff all over the country. We are doing stuff local. President matters. Absolutely. And so do all the other elections. They all matter. They're all important. We've got to try to win all the way. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it.